everyone, today we're going to talk about the Paycheck Protection Program. I have covered kind of the blanket overview of the CARES Act and all the different programs in a different video. I'll link to that below. But today with the Paycheck Protection Program, which I'm going to call PPP from now on because that's a mouthful, we're going to talk about where to go to apply, who's eligible to apply, the main calculation that you need to know for the application process. Once you have the loan, what is forgivable, what turns into a grant. And then I'm also at the very end, I'm going to talk about how this relates to unemployment because there's a lot of confusion there. So at the end, I'll talk about that. But for now, let's start with just the PPP and where to go. So first, you're going to go to your local SBA lender. This is a program that you'll work from there. So if you don't have one yet, you can go to sba.gov/lendermatch and you can find a local bank that's doing it, or you can go to the small business development centers and find local banks that are working on the SBA. Some of the bigger banks are already completely overwhelmed. I understand that some of them have stopped accepting applications, so it might actually be a benefit to go find one of the smaller ones and apply there. They all can do the same program. As far as who is eligible, I think everybody kind of understands that an LLC or an S corporation or a C corporation has employees and they're eligible to apply for this. But you're also eligible to apply if you're a sole proprietor, you're self-employed, you're a gig worker like Uber or Lyft, or you're an independent contractor. So it's really important to understand that you are eligible if you didn't think so. The other piece of that is that your business has to have been established before February 15th, 2020. So if you started after that, you're not eligible for this program. But if you just started at, on January 1st, 2020, you can use the first quarter and as your calculation for your monthly average payroll, as long as you can document that that's what you, or what you paid yourself or what you paid your employees, then you should be fine there. So otherwise you will use your 2019 payroll to calculate how much of a loan you're asking for through these programs. The other piece of that is that if you are a business who hired independent contractors, you will not use what you paid them as part of your payroll calculation. The independent contractors are going in and applying for this themselves. Several of them work for multiple companies, so it just streamlines that process so that they are applying for their own benefits through this program. To calculate payroll, your monthly payroll, what counts? That's one of the major questions that is in people's heads. So wages and salaries, obviously, but also you can put in tips and commissions. If you have some kind of documentation on how you've been keeping track of that for the year, you can put that in. Some people pay through payroll, some are cash tips. But as long as you can document it, you can use that as part of your calculations. Benefit premiums that you're paying for your employees or yourself if you're self-employed, pre-tax, and then also retirement contributions that come from the business into your to your employees. State and local taxes also count, but federal taxes do not. So FICA, Medicare, Social Security, you will not count as part of what you're asking for in a monthly payroll calculation. So if you have your employees and your entire year's worth of payroll is $120,000, you would divide that by 12 months, and then your average payroll would be $10,000 per month. That is the baseline for the Paycheck Protection Program. If you have an economic injury disaster loan that you already received money from, you'll need to know that number as well. But if you have applied but you haven't received money, then that will not count as part of this calculation. So for an example, with $10,000 a month for your average payroll cost, the PPP calculation is 2.5 times that number, which is $25,000. If you got $10,000 for your economic injury disaster loan already, you would add that in. It would be a $35,000 max loan amount. If you've never gotten any money from the disaster loan, then it would just be that $25,000 that you'd be applying for, and that is what you would use to calculate it. So Once you have that money, you will have to document, well, probably before you get the money, you'll have to show the banks, how you came up with those calculations. So your Schedule C's, your payroll company documents, anything that you submitted for that quarterly or for the whole year of 2019. And then for sole proprietors, your net earnings will count towards that. Once you have the money, what is forgivable? What turns into a grant? The 4 things that you can spend this money on and have it be forgiven are payroll, mortgage interest, rent, and utilities. The big key here is that 75% has to go towards payroll. So if you have a $25,000 loan, 75% of that money needs to be set aside and only used for employees. The whole point of this program is to keep people employed at the place that they were employed before coronavirus came through. So you can't take the $25,000 and then fire all your employees, pay your rent, and expect that you're going to be able to write the entire $25,000 off. You will not. You have to use 75% of that to pay employees. After that 75%, the other 25% can be used for the mortgage interest, whatever you write off for your business at home, your utilities, or your rent if you're renting a space. But only that 25%. Anything that you use this loan for inappropriately or not, if you don't use 75% of it for payroll, that part of the loan will stay a loan. It's a low interest loan, it's 1%, and it has to be paid back within 2 years. It is deferred for 6 months, and there are no fees and stuff like that, so it's still not a terrible deal for a small amount. But if you took out a large loan, $100,000, and you didn't use it appropriately, that's a pretty stiff payment plan to pay it off in 2 years. So just make sure that you're spending it on the stuff that you're supposed to be spending it on. I am linking below to the Treasury fact sheets and even the longer 30-page document for Treasury's breakdown of the Paycheck Protection Program. It's got several examples on how to calculate what your loan should be. So it's good information, and it's not the full $800-page CARES Act document. If you guys have questions about that kind of thing, please comment below. Tell me what I need to go into more for those. The last thing that I want to talk about is unemployment. If you're receiving funds for the Paycheck Protection Program and you're paying yourself or you're paying employees, you or your employees that you're paying are no longer unemployed. So you can't have both. If you're receiving funds right now for unemployment, or your employees are, and then you start paying them again, then they need to come off of unemployment. You need to come off of unemployment. One of the main purposes of this program is to take the weight off of unemployment. It's cheaper for the government to give businesses money to pay their employees. It's easier for us as employers to keep employees that are already trained, not have to rehire. And it's easier for employees to not have to go find another job. So it really benefits everybody as long as it's all used correctly. So just something to think about. I did put some links down below to calculate if you're self-employed and you want to know whether it's a better deal for you to do the payment or the PPP versus unemployment. You can figure out what your state's maximum is, or figure out what your actual calculation is for what you would get for unemployment, and decide which program is better for you. Every state is different, so it really, really does matter where you are. I can tell you that you apply for the state that you work in, not the state that you live in, if that's different. But really, you just want to kind of dig in and see which one works better for you and go for that program, one or the other though, not both. If you guys have friends that are small businesses that are confused by these programs, please send them my way. Comment down below with other subjects that you guys want to talk about. What else should I be looking into for you? I know what I'm looking into for myself, so I'm sure we'll be discussing lots of different things, but I would love to hear from you guys and hear what you want to talk about. And then like and share, subscribe, hit that bell so you know when the next one comes in. This is what I'm doing anyway, and I really like helping fellow business owners understand that and break it down into smaller bite-sized pieces instead of, trying to break down 800 pages of documentation. That's just too much for anybody, really. So let me know what you need from me in the future. I appreciate you guys being here, and we'll be back soon.